What is going on, everyone? Welcome to Party on Broad. Today, we are breaking down everything you need to know between the Eagles and the Commanders NFC Championship game. Joining me, he is my man, Rob Lange, at Rob_Philly_Madness. What's going on, man?
I tell you, there were a lot of things that I thought going into the season, but an Eagles-Commanders NFC title game was not on the top of my list, man. I'm excited, but I'm not going to lie. The Philly nerves, the Philly anxiety is real right now for many, many different reasons. But I just need it to be Sunday, man. I just need it to be Sunday. I can't do it anymore. I can't talk about it. I can't think about it. I need the ball to get kicked off, and let's just get rolling.
Awesome. We have a great guest. I feel like it's been several years now, back and forth. And I remember going on your show before the season started saying they would take over the Cowboys' second best in the NFC East. Didn't expect Jaden Daniels to hit this good, but he is Jalen Morgan, does amazing work covering the Commanders at Bleeding BNG. What's up, Jalen?
What's up, man? Super excited. Like Rob said, I feel like I've been going to sleep extra early to try to cut down on these slumbers before Sunday, because like I told you guys before we recorded, I don't know what this feels like. Like, I literally don't know what being in a NFC Championship feels like. We haven't been there since 1991. I was born in 95. And while I still feel young at heart, I am getting a little up there in age. So for us to be there for our first time, it's quite a feeling. It's surreal, to say the least.
Man, it's going to be so fun. It's good to have the NFC East, like what I think will be a game one in the trenches. Let's bring on Ryan. Ryan, are you good?
Oh, I'm as good as I can be.
He looks wonderful. Look at him.
Ryan, at Philly Sports PSA. What's up, Ryan?
Not much. Sorry for my lateness. One of my 17 jobs went a little long, so my apologies.
Tonight we are talking top matchups to watch, biggest X factors in Eagles fill in the blank. We'll get into prop bets as well. Guys, if you're watching us live, of course, please be sure to comment your thoughts on this one. It's going to be a lot of fun. Rob is so stressed he grew a hairline.
Dude, before we get started, Marshawn, do you understand that I haven't been able to yawn in public without thinking of myself as Mufasa because of you, dude? Like, I am at school now teaching kids, and I yawn. I'm like, damn, I look like a lion. Like, it's the first thing that comes to my head now because of this man right here.
Jalen, just be prepared. These comments could get really
especially from
I know how the live streams get. Trust me. And I know I'm in enemy's territory. Trust me. I get it.
This guy right here likes to just go after you. It's a lot of fun. A lot of fun.
All right. With that being said, I say we just get into this thing. Let's talk top matchups to watch between the Eagles and the Commanders. Top matchups to watch. We've got the comments coming in. One saying they're nervous about Cam Jurgens being out. I'm not really nervous about that. We'll see how
he's going to play.
I think he will play.
That's got me concerned.
Yeah, that's a big problem. Frankie Louvu is a better headhunter than Indeed. We'll get into that, I'm sure. CJGJ's got to keep his cool, keep his hands to himself. Keep the bad language down.
I was going to say, apparently you're not allowed to use bad words on the field. You get thrown out for that now.
Yeah.
I'll throw it to you, Jalen. You're a special guest. Like, what's your top matchup to watch between the Eagles and the Commanders? I've got a lot.
My top matchup will probably be, I would have said going prior to last week, Terry McLaurin versus Quinyon Mitchell, because, we saw what he did week 11, I think, on Thursday Night Football, kind of like negating Terry out of the game. And we saw what it did to our offense. And even though, Terry didn't set the world on fire in the Week 16 matchup, him going over top allowed, it opened up the rest of the offense. And I know Quinion's coming in here a little hampered, but I think even you guys as Eagle fans can admit that Terry has had Darius Slay's number since Darius has been an Eagle. And I haven't seen Eagles cornerback check Terry McLaurin like Quinion Mitchell did on that Thursday night, even though he did face some bracket coverage. I'm not going to say it was all game, but, he was running stride for stride with him. So curious to see how Quinion comes into this game. But, yeah, I think that would be my top matchup for sure.
Quinion Mitchell held his own against Terry McLaurin in that first matchup, 20 routes run, 0 targets, 0 receptions, 0 yards. And I remember Week 16, it was the first time Quinion got beat, if you remember correctly. And that was like, we had no idea what was going on. It was he got hit by a double move, I think it was, and he's kind of been susceptible by this, as all rookie cornerbacks, as all cornerbacks can be. But that's a good one. And Quinion's kind of my X factor going ahead of schedule here, but they're a little thin at the cornerback position for the Philadelphia Eagles. And I don't know, as Ryan is shaking his head. I'll throw it to you, Ryan. What's a top matchup to watch for you,
He's
man?
late, and you throw it to him before me. Unbelievable.
Hey, that just shows you exactly where I stand.
Yeah, saving best for last.
My top matchup is obviously Jalen Carter versus the poor soul who's taking over for Frank Cosme on the interior there for the Redskins Commanders.
And Sam Cosme.
And what did I say?
Frank? I don't know who Frank is. Does he make
Did I say
sandwiches?
Frank Cosme? Oh, well, sorry. Maybe I was thinking of Frankie Louvu, but anyway, yes, it is Sam Cosme. Thank you. I do know that. But yeah, I think Jalen, especially in these playoffs, has been extremely dominant and has been getting double teamed left and right, and it's still shown to be an absolute game wrecker. And you put him up against somebody who has, 8, 9 starts in his 7-year career. I just think he's going to be salivating looking across the line there at what is going to be blocking him, and let them go ahead and double, because it's only going to open it up things for Nolan Smith. So I just think, the Commanders better have quite the game plan to kind of neutralize Jalen Carter as much as possible while not completely alleviating the structure of their offensive line.
Yeah, Jalen, so much of the Eagles' pressure comes up the middle. Jalen Carter, Milton Williams, Moro Jomo's been getting at it. We saw that last week. But Trent Scott held, 0 pressures, 19 pass blocking snaps. What do we need to know about this guy, Trent Scott?
So I was actually a little jealous at Ryan's take just now, because that was going to be my first matchup to highlight, because Jalen Carter is just a stud. I think he's honestly, outside of Saquon, might be the best player on you guys' team. But the reason that I didn't say that as, the key matchup is because Dan Quinn came out in his presser yesterday, and I don't know if Trent Scott's going to be starting. While he did hold up well against the Lions, Trent Scott is our 4th tackle. He's not even our backup swing tackle. That goes to Cornelius Lucas. So it was kind of a shock to see, them insert Trent Scott in there against the Lions. I don't know if it was a schematic thing. I don't know if they like that matchup, because over there in the Commanders community, when he's had to fill in, because we've had that rotation of the right tackles being injured, Trent Scott has had, his fair share of losses. And, for him to show up in the bright lights in Detroit, that was shocking to see. So I don't know who Jalen Carter will be going against, but honestly, he's going to have the upper hand, whether that be Andrew Wiley kicking over the left guard and right guard, and Cornelius Lucas playing that right tackle spot, or if it's Trent Scott. I know he held up well, but Jalen Carter is just a different beast than those third stringers that we were going against on the Detroit defensive line.
Do you think it's any possibility that Chris Paul, I know he's primarily more of a left guard, backing up the left guard there, Allegretti.
Mm-hmm.
But do you think any chance he swings over to the right side or?
So to be honest, I got a group chat that I have with commanders that we do a live game watch on, and we honestly thought that Chris Paul was going to be the immediate replacement for Sam Cosmi when he got hurt. That's why I said that we were surprised when Trent Scott was inserted because he's been playing solely tackle outside of the Detroit game. So I think probably not, because that shows where he stands on the roster and where they think. Because a lot of the games, I think about half of the season, Chris Paul was actually inactive. So I think he'll be up just for depth concerns and things of that nature. So there is a chance because we have linemen falling like a mass unit, but I don't think he'll be the first two options on the depth chart per se.
Not that Chris Paul, by the way, Marshawn.
Yeah.
Marshawn says he plays tackle. There's also another Chris Paul coming into the NFL next year, by the way, a linebacker. He's actually really good.
Why don't we just name everybody Chris Paul?
Sure. Who cares?
All right. Jalen, do Commanders fans like Josh Harris?
They love him. They love him.
Oh, boy.
Like I said, we can only go from up with Dan Snyder. So it would have been anybody. It could have been Josh Morgan. His name could have been Chris Paul, right? And we would have loved him because you could only go up from Dan Snyder. But I think, 76er fans might oppose me on this view. But with Josh being from the DMV, I do think that he cares about this organization a little more than he does with the 76ers.
Yes, he does. We agree with you.
So he pours into this organization. You've heard the talks about our stadium, but there's been a lot of housekeeping and window dressing that he's been doing with the stadium. Fan upkeep and things of that engagement. We've had a light show. I never expected FedEx Field or Northwest Stadium to have the capability of having a light show. So he's trying to dress up the pig until we get a new stadium. But like I said, you can only go up from Dan Snyder, to be honest.
That stadium is horrid.
Yeah, trust me.
What Marshawn is saying, the sports gods, okay, which I'm a huge believer in the sports gods,
Amen,
cannot allow Josh Harris to hoist any damn trophy in our city limits. If this game was down in Washington, by all means, but I'm sorry, damn it, this man cannot, after what he has put us through, hoist anything outside of a big bag of poop in our city. Okay,
yeah, he might get murdered if he brings it into Philly.
Oh my God!
He's very much a fraud. We haven't talked Sixers basketball, rightfully so, in a long time.
For what? Yeah,
but he's a big part of the problem.
I love that, by the way.
So I've heard.
I agree with you.
I agree. Okay.
I think that's the realization is Joel's the problem. But anyway, I'll take the layup. Saquon Barkley versus the Washington run defense. Love to get your thoughts on this, Jalen. But first, we saw Saquon Barkley carve up the Commanders in weeks 11 and 16. It wasn't, effective, games quarters 1 through 4. You look at the week 11 matchup. He had 19 attempts and 63 yards through 3 quarters. Blew up in the fourth quarter. Had a great first quarter against the Commanders in week 16. The Commanders did a really good job once they knew Kenny Pickett wasn't going to hurt them with his legs. This is a Eagles rushing offense that dominates in the second half. 62% of Saquon's rushing yards this year have taken place in the second half. The Commanders, allowed 4.5 yards per carry against Bucky Irving in the wild card. Jahmyr Gibbs went off 7.5 yards per carry and 2 touchdowns in the divisional round. Might have needed more touches, but they were playing catch up. So I'm really interested to hear your take, Jalen, on a Commanders defense that allows a ton of explosive runs. They have the second highest explosive run rate in the NFL, 13.2%, and they allow the most yards before contact in the NFL. And the Eagles this season average the 3rd most yards before contact. So like that's the biggest take. Everyone's talking about Jaden Daniels, and rightfully so. He's been amazing this year. But the storyline should be, how the hell do the Commanders stop Saquon Barkley in this Eagles rushing attack? I want to throw this one to you, man.
While I 100% agree, and I'm not trying to minimize the impact of the run game, because that is the number one on my list of concerns. Outside of the matchup with you guys Thursday night and maybe our matchup with the Baltimore Ravens, it hasn't seemed to matter in terms of the scoreboard. Even like you mentioned with the Detroit Lions, after the first quarter, I thought that Jahmyr Gibbs was going to go for 300 all-purpose yards on this. But like you said, they had to get in the position of where they had to play catch-up because we're capable of putting points on the board. To be 100% honest, they can put us 4 on the offensive line, and we can have a running back rush for 100 yards on our defense. And it's just been that all season. And, it still has culminated in a season where we've won 14 games. And I just think, in the modern day NFL, the quarterback position is so much more important than the running back position, say in the early 2000s or the 90s, where, if that quarterback is churning out 40 and 50-point games, you're not going to be able to stick with the run game. And, while I do think, Saquon is able to, with his run game control clock and things like that, that's my biggest concern outside of like production is like the time of possession and you guys churning out first downs rather than like an explosive run.
I feel like that's going to be real quick, Rob. I'll throw it to you. I feel like that's it. Like, which team can sustain drives on offense? The best offense or the best defense is a great offense, and I feel like Jaden Daniels getting first downs with his legs on 3rd and 4th downs, keeping the ball away from Jalen Hurts and Saquon Barkley in that rushing attack. Go ahead, Rob.
Before I get to my matchup, that's where the NFL, for the most part, has been a passing league and all this stuff. The Eagles have shown all year that their goal is to run the ball. And even if it's not going well in the first quarter or the second quarter, they want to wear you down so that you can get that big burst in the fourth quarter, that 70-yard run, that 60-yard run. Because what happens is it's either you load the box and you go one-on-one with AJ and Devontae, or you do a death by 1,000 cuts and you don't get beat on the big play. But the problem with death by 1,000 cuts is that is a lot of time and a lot of snaps for your defense to be on the field. And that's kind of what the Eagles have tried to do. And that's going to be a big thing for the Commanders to figure out what is the best way to handle that in a game like this, whether it's mixing it up or whatever. But I will say, and I know that Marshawn just brought it up, my biggest matchup has to be Jaden Daniels. And you could say Jaden Daniels versus everybody, but I'll say just for sake of an argument, Jaden versus the defensive front. Because here's the deal. If you don't get pressure on him, he's going to sit back there and pick you apart because he throws the ball unbelievably well. But you can't blitz him. And Detroit learned that the hard way. Actually, I don't think Detroit learned that. I think they're still trying to blitz him, which made no sense. But you can't blitz him. However, if you can get home, you got to keep him in front of you. You can't rush past him. If you're the edges, you can't go behind him, right? You got to almost do that mush rush type of thing. Because if not, he's going to run for 30 yards past you. So for me, can you make Jaden Daniels just have a good game? Because if he just has a good game, I think the Eagles have a really good chance of winning. If he has an elite game, which he's more than capable of having, then I think the Eagles could be in trouble. So to me, it starts and ends at Jaden Daniels because he's the guy that's going to tell you whether or not the Commanders can win this game or not.
All right. The Eagles had the 5th lowest blitz percentage at 19.1% this season. Week 11, the Eagles blitzed 12.5%. Held Jaden Daniels pretty well. Jaden Daniels was hurt a little bit. Week 16, they blitzed 35.6%, one of their highest rates of the season. And Jaden Daniels beat them pretty handily, especially in that fourth quarter where he was outstanding. And his numbers were ridiculous. The Eagles, during Eagles blitzes, Jaden Daniels threw for 173 yards, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions, 10 of 15 passing when being blitzed in that Week 16 matchup, 145.3 passer rating. That was the third highest in an NFL game this season when he was blitzed with at least 15 throws. Rob, you nailed it with the Lions and blitzing the Commanders. So for me, that is just so massive. And just getting consistent pressure with 4 obviously starts up the middle. But this is a game where I think Jaden Daniels likes to scramble the most to the right side, and that screams Oren Burks, a backup linebacker for Nakobe Dean. I go back to that Week 11 matchup where Nakobe Dean made some really solid open field tackles. My man, Nakobe, we miss you. Get better soon. But he made some great tackles on Jaden Daniels in space. And, to be fair, like, this is a phenomenal defense, but they've had moments where they don't wrap up. They've had moments where seemingly the entire defense fails and misses tackles like crazy. So it's just massive for those 3rd and 4th down situations. I feel like that's where this game is going to be won. It's not real analysis, but like there have been times when the situational play calling for the Eagles, especially on offense, has not been good. And I feel like it's just going to be execution and it's going to be play calling. And there's been some cracks for the Eagles in that area, especially on offense. So I feel like whichever offense can effectively keep the opposing defense off the field is going to be so huge. I think it's a more even game than a lot of Eagles fans, but that's just me. Rob said cut more than Christopher Nolan.
Yes.
Terry McLaurin said Q squats more than Instagram. Anybody have any other matchups to watch?
You guys are good because I was actually going to talk about the Nakobe Dean matchup because I honestly think that people aren't giving that enough attention because honestly the defenses that have given us the most trouble is guys that I won't say are able to run stride for stride or step for step with Jaden Daniels, but are guys that might be just a tick slower that are able to string out his runs and things of that nature. Like Patrick Queen, like the Steelers, like Nakobe Dean in the first game. And while I heard one of the Eagle content creators talking about, oh, that's fine, we could just put Zach Bond on a spy against him. But what they don't understand about that is that takes Zach Bond out of coverage, which I think he's excelled at this year. Shoot, we saw the play that he made against Stafford in the snow just this past weekend. So I don't know if you guys want to take him out of coverage. So you touching on a guy like Oren Burks. I agree. He's in for a long day if he's the spy to be 100%.
I got to tell you, if I'm the Eagles, I bring in some sort of a safety for the spy. I don't know if it's Sidney Brown. If you put Sidney Brown on the field, I don't know if you I don't think it's going to be the same guy every time. Let me put it that way. I think it's going to change. I don't think they're just going to say, all right, your job is Jaden Daniels all game. I don't think that's going to happen. I think you got to switch it up. You got to give them different looks. So maybe it's Sidney Brown. Maybe it's Zach Bond. Maybe Tristan McCollum comes out. Maybe they even throw an Avonte Maddox onto the field for a minute.
Whoa.
No. Not to cover anyone. He's not covering anyone.
The second Avonte Maddox hits the football field, you know exactly
I'm
where
telling you that I believe you're going to see different wrinkles from Vic as far as who is spying Jaden and when they are doing it. I think it's going to be different bodies all day.
That right there is, I think, is where your thought process is flawed. And I don't mean to jump all over you there, Rob. Vic Fangio does not like to employ the spy. So he's not going to ever give it to you in a traditional sense. You're absolutely right. And listen, he may try and disguise it. He may try and do a little bit more dime packages because, again, I think he puts more of the players in better positions to kind of cover all of the bases there and speedier guys. So while, yes, I don't ever see him having a specific spy. He will do things like you said, Rob, to kind of, confuse things, make Jaden Daniels think for that extra split second. And that alone is enough for the Jalen Carters, for the Nolan Smiths to get home. And that is what I'm hoping is what the situation is to give Jaden Daniels enough of a little bit of a confusion. Because again, let's be honest, this is only Jaden Daniels, 19th, or 20th professional game. No matter what, still to this day, we've never seen a rookie quarterback in a Super Bowl. And there's a reason for that, because playoffs are a different animal. And I think, again, if you can continue down that road, give him a little bit extra to think about, process, to get his mind off of exactly what he wants to do, that'll give our defense enough time to do exactly what we want to do.
My counter to that is Jaden Daniels is not a normal rookie. And he's proven that week in and week out. And he is listen, I love the Link. And the Link is loud. And the Link is going to be roaring on Sunday.
I'll make sure of it.
But that Ford Field, that dome, is, from what I've been told, one of the most electric places when it's filled. And that guy was cool. To quote the late great Stuart Scott, he was as cool as the other side of the pillow that entire game. Never once did he look rattled at all. So I don't know how you rattle Jaden Daniels. You can beat him, but I don't know how you rattle him.
I don't think we're going to see a lot of differences with Vic Fangio this week. I think you probably will see some 3-man rushes. I think you probably will see a lot of disguises. I think this is a huge Zach Bond game for all the reasons, but this game just lies on execution and this defense wrapping up tackles, filling in holes, just circling back to Oren Burks, Jalen. He filled in for Nakobe Dean, and that was a really tough injury because he was his improvement in 2024 was astronomical. It was really great to see, and it was hard to watch, especially considering Oren Burks came in during that wild card and looked like garbage. He was lost. He was just taking all the wrong angles in all the wrong spots, missing tackles left and right. And then last week, he had a full week of practice with the ones and played pretty darn well. He was definitely kind of that unsung hero, I think, in many respects. That being said, he was only targeted in coverage twice. So it'll be really interesting to see what Vic Fangio does with Oren Burks and the Jeremiah Trotter Jr. rotation. That is definitely going to be key. I don't know what he's going to do. Jeremiah Trotter Jr. is probably a little better than Burks in terms of instincts and feel and filling gaps, that kind of thing. That is obviously a top 5 battle or matchup to watch. Vic Fangio versus Jaden Daniels, and just putting Jaden Daniels in a blender. Hopefully. I'll go to another match.
No, by the way, the Dan Marino was a second-year player, by the way.
We haven't beaten a Bobby Wagner-led defense in the playoffs. Bobby Wagner is terrific. Man.
Very, very specific.
That's a really specific stat.
ESPN LeBron stats, right?
Yeah, right. Pretty much.
Jalen, I got to throw this one out there. If there was one weakness besides like Jake Elliott on this Eagles roster, it's got to be the pass protection of the Eagles' interior O-line. It is not good right now. Cam Jurgens really struggled. He's fighting a back injury. We'll see what his status is for practice tomorrow. I'm not overreacting, but it wasn't great. Him and Mekhi Becton in pass protection was not good. And those two against a guy like Jonathan Allen, who was outstanding last week, could be a big problem, man. Jonathan Allen, he had 6 pressures, 4 hurries, 2 quarterback hits, 1 tackle for loss, a 25% pass rush win rate. He was the second highest graded player for the Commanders in the divisional round, man. What are your thoughts on Jonathan Allen? Because we like if you can get, obviously that, interior pressure into Jalen Hurts, that can be a big problem.
John Allen has had one of the most roller coaster rides of a season that I can remember. Because we touched on the Commanders' struggles in the run game, and John Allen has had his hand in that. And not only John Allen but Deron Payne, us in the Commanders community, we've been at their head over the course of this season because there's no reason why we have the highest paid interior defensive line and we struggle in the run game like we do. And then he got injured and was deemed out for the season after the Baltimore Raven game. And I started to hear some of the Commander fans talking crazy about our second-round pick, Johnny Newton, potentially outplaying Jonathan Allen, and that never happened. With all that being said, Jonathan Allen did have his best game of the season last week, particularly in the pass rushing department. He showed a lot of juice, a lot of twitchiness that I didn't necessarily see before his pec injury. And I was concerned because, defensive lineman and a pec injury, that's not the most ideal injury to be coming back from in the midst of a season. But I don't know if he's one of our longest tenure players. So I don't know if he's shooting his load. I don't know if there's been a whole bunch of stuff built up in him where he's like, he doesn't have a lot of chances at this knowing or being in this organization. So, him showing up last week, I hope he can continue that into this season. But
we're getting killed in the comments. Here it comes.
Yeah.
Excuse me. Here it comes. 44-6 was a Cowboys reference. I love it. I'll bet we're winning the back hair game.
I have that one all on my own, guys.
Yeah, you do. Yeah, you do.
I have that one on all my own.
That's you, sir.
You could freaking braid my back hair, fellas. You could braid my back hair. I don't care.
So Jalen, one last matchup for on my end is one of the hottest players in the NFL, I think, and that is Nolan Smith Jr. He has been outstanding these last few weeks. He's been playing. His snaps have been ramping up, and he has delivered. He took down Zach Tom against the Packers, took him to the chopping block. Last week was Rob Havenstein of the Rams. Who do you think is going to be that right tackle? Is it going to be Andrew Wiley? What's your take on Andrew Wiley? Because I feel like there's people that think he's improved, people that think he's garbage. Like, what's your thought on that right side of the line?
Honestly, if it's Andrew Wiley, because we talked about the potential of him sliding into that right guard spot, filling in for Sam Cosmi, I'm extremely concerned because Andrew Wiley doesn't do well with like freak specimens, like height, weight, speed guys like a Nolan Smith. And even though he's higher on the depth chart than a guy like Cornelius Lucas, I would have more confidence in a guy like Cornelius Lucas, who's our swing tackle, but he's a behemoth of a guy. He's like 6'8", about 330 pounds, and he deals with bull rushers really well. I think actually on that game-winning touchdown that we had against you guys on week 16, he had a little bit of a false start, but he held up against Nolan Smith really well on that rep. And that's something that, Andrew Wiley, I don't think is capable of doing just due to his athletic limitations. So I'm honestly curious to see who we trot out there as our 5 linemen to start. But, I do like some stylistic matchups better than others.
Most important question, does Jalen like the Commanders song?
If it's the fight song, I hate it. If it's left hand up, I love it. But if it's the fight song, I hate that new fight song.
Marshawn says Cornelius Lucas is such a distinguished name. All right. Anybody else have any other matchups to watch before we get into fill in the blank?
No. That was a 35-minute matchup to watch. Before the show, Dime's like, oh, well, you know what? We're not talking about last week's game. This show may go shorter.
Yeah. Sounds like a 4th century Roman emperor, Cornelius Decimus Brutus. All right. All right. Let's get into our next segment. Eagles fill in the blank. All right, Rob. You all right, man?
I can't stop laughing at Marshawn's I know Ryan watching cat videos on his laptop. I thought that was just so well timed.
Love it. You also have Hassan Reddick highlights. Yeah, I got updates some shit. Rob, all right, I'm going to throw it to you first, my man. The Eagles beat the Commanders because
I know this is like a safe answer, but the Eagles are the better team, top to bottom, than the Washington Commanders. And that's not, I hope people don't take that as a slight against the Commanders, but, and the game isn't played on paper, but it's a fact, right? That the Eagles, position by position, have more positions, almost everyone but one, they're better at right now. And they're at home. They've been here. They're experienced. A lot of this team was here 2 years ago when they were back there. You heard Jalen say back in the beginning, the Commanders haven't been here since 91. Okay. That means none of these guys have been here. Maybe some on other teams and stuff like that. But you know what I mean? So look, the Eagles are the better team. If they play their game and they don't turn the ball over, they will win the game. But it's not, to me, this is not like it has been the last 2 weeks of feeling ultra confident. I know the guy up in that right corner over there disagrees, but I look, I feel good. I like this team. I love this team. I think Jalen said it before we came on the air about the Commanders. I don't want this season to end because I have really loved watching this team and this brand of football with the hard-nosed defense and the running the football and all that stuff. So I do believe the Eagles are the better team. And I mean, that's the reason why the Eagles would win the game.
Grabby says the Eagles have the better roster. The Commanders are the hotter team.
Yeah.
The Commanders beat the better team twice now in the playoffs. The Eagles win or lose because of Hurts. This is a big Jalen Hurts game. I'm worried about all those DC fans invading the link again. The Eagles win because the defense shuts down the Commanders. I probably sold my tickets to Washington fans. Jalen, the Eagles beat the Commanders because
the Eagles beat the Commanders because they get to Jaden Daniels rushing with their front four and only with their front four. Like you guys touched on, Vic Fangio isn't a blitz heavy guy. And Jaden Daniels in the playoffs has been almost perfect against the blitz. And I think that was one of the reasons why he struggled outside of his injury, because I don't like chalking up a lot of performances due to injury. If you're out there, you're out there. But he hadn't seen a lot of like 8 and 7 in coverage until we faced Vic Fangio that first time. I think he's gotten adjusted to it over time, but the Eagles beat the Commanders. If Jalen Carter is dominant, like you guys said, Nolan Smith is dominant, Josh Sweat is dominant, and they're able to get home to Jaden Daniels just rushing 4.
What about you, Ryan? You're muted, man.
It's because he was watching cat videos.
Yeah, I had to make sure you guys didn't hear him. Listen, when you look at our offense and their offense, we clearly both have offenses that can score at will. Sometimes they, get lulls, but for the most part, very good offenses. But I think where the difference comes in is the defense, and I think Eagles have shown throughout a larger, scale throughout the season that their defense is capable of clamping down. And while Washington's defense certainly has its moments, for the most part, it seems to be when they are playing well, it's a shootout, and they're just able to outshoot their opponents. I think that's not going to be the case for this game, as the Eagles have probably one of the better defenses that they're going to be going up against in the last couple of games. And I don't see this being one of those like super ultimate shootouts like their last game was with the Lions. I think the Eagles are able to clamp down a little bit, just enough to kind of get forward and take the lead. And with the lead, I think the Eagles play much better.
Yeah, my answer is the defense as well. More specifically, just staying healthy. CJ Gardner-Johnson, keep your head on, man. Just tone down the swear words just a little bit.
So ridiculous.
You don't get thrown out of the game.
I think people will riot if he gets thrown out.
I swear to God, if they throw him for cursing on a National Football League field, I'm going to lose my goddamn mind. I'm gonna lose my. These are grown ass men. They could say whatever they want to each other as long as they're not using, racial or gesture, anything like that. But come on, man. Come on.
Talking about my mama.
Yeah. The drop off of CJ Gardner-Johnson to Tristan McCollum was unbelievable. Unbelievable. Like night and day with that defense. We saw the Commanders go right after Tristan McCollum. Just like we saw earlier this season with Avonte Maddox, whether that was the pass or the run game, defenses or opposing offenses went right after them on the outside there. And CJ Gardner-Johnson just has to be smart and has to know that they're going to be coming after him. So for me, I'm looking at CJ Gardner-Johnson. Keep your cool, man. This is a revenge game for him. Guys like Darius Slay, even though Isaiah Rodgers has been solid in that backup role, we'll get to some X factor soon. I'm a little worried about a matchup there. But Hugh was really good against, the Rams last week. Targeted 16 times. He did give up a decent amount of yards, but he was outstanding, I thought, in general. And then Quinyon Mitchell, just stay healthy, man. If all of our secondary can stay on point, I feel like our run defense will be fine. I feel like our pass defense will fine, and that'll give us a shot. So for me, that's where I'm going to go. Anyone recall how the Washington-Tampa Bay game went? Jalen, any thoughts on that?
The playoff game?
I believe so.
We pretty much dominated the game wire to wire. It ended up being close, but the Tampa Bay couldn't stop us offensively. And we held the lead going into halftime. I think it was tied, even though we dominated the first half. And they started to gash us in the run game in the second half. But as I said at the beginning of you guys' stream, it just it hasn't seemed to matter over the course of like the last 2 months. Because if you get a ball to Jaden Daniels with the ball in his hands last, he seems to always come out on top.
All right, let's flip it. The Commanders will beat the Eagles because I'll throw this one to you, Jalen, first. What's your take?
I don't want to be cliche-ish, but I honestly believe it. I think that the Commanders, the only way that they can beat the Eagles is that Jaden Daniels continues to be the best quarterback in the playoffs. He has to have like an outer body experience. That's the reason that we got here. You guys are 100% right. 1-53, you guys' roster is way better than us. But I think we have the advantage at the most important position. So if he's capable of having one of those games like he had in week 16, minus the turnovers, because I don't think that we're going to win throwing 2 interceptions in the playoffs. Because like I said, that's when the ball control with Saquon and things of that nature come in. But if Jaden Daniels is able to expose you guys with his legs, his arms, and can account for about 400 yards, he was on pace to go for about 600 yards by himself in the first half of the Detroit Lions game. Now, we didn't need it because we started to, go up by about 2 scores. But if he can continue that pace, because I do think it's going to be a back and forth affair. If he can continue at that pace, I do think we have a shot because he's just like that type of high-producing offensive player where it's hard to keep up with.
Yeah, I'm just going to piggyback off of that. Jaden Daniels just keeping the offense on the field on those, crucial 3rd and 4th downs. Jaden Daniels during 3rd and 4th downs this postseason almost has a perfect QBR. That has been, those 3rd downs, 3rd and longs, 4th downs have been somewhat of an Achilles heel for the Eagles at times. They've definitely given up some big plays to other quarterbacks. Luckily, we've gone up against Jaden Daniels now twice. We've gone up against Lamar Jackson. So Vic Fangio has the task of using what works, what doesn't work going forward. But that's where I'm looking at it. If the Commanders beat the Eagles, it's because Jaden Daniels just keeps winning on those 3rd downs, on those 4th downs in the time of possession game for me. What about you, Rob?
I would say the Commanders beat the Eagles because they control the clock. Their time of possession has been really good these 2 weeks in the playoffs. And it goes to kind of what you're saying, Dodge. They control the clock and they keep the Eagles off the field. You know, the Eagles when the Eagles are not in rhythm offensively, that's when they go stagnant and you get these quick 3-and-outs. The Eagles have to be in a rhythm, and if they're not on the field enough, they can't get into that rhythm. So it really comes down to the Eagles defense having to do what they've done all year. They can't have a slip-up game this week. Like you cannot. This is like one of the weeks where you can't do it, okay? Because as long as the defense does what they have done all year, I think the Eagles will be in a pretty good spot. But it's going to be a difficult challenge with Jaden Daniels back there. So the way the Commanders win is control the clock, and the Eagles defense is not who they've been all year.
Ryan?
Yeah, I'm going to kind of piggyback off of Rob.
Of course you are.
All right. Well, never mind then. I'm going a completely different way. No, the Eagles will get themselves into trouble if they get down early and they don't do the things that got them here. And but by that I mean, you know, whether it's just the type of playing or throwing the ball too much. You know, if they get early turnovers, anything that kind of get them behind the 8 ball. And Rob's right, they cannot afford to not have a great game. They can't afford to play like they did against the Packers or the Rams, where Jake Elliott's missing kicks left and right, and they're not converting on third downs, and they go stagnant on offense for long periods of time. That's not going to cut it. And Washington will absolutely take advantage of that. So if the Eagles can, make sure that they kind of are right there toe to toe, that's their shot. And again, the Commanders get up, that's when I'm going to start getting worried.
Yep. All right. Any other takes before we get into X factors? Going once, going twice. Let's get into our Eagles X factors of the week. Eagles X factors, guys, and Commanders, of course. Guys that are not your stars, guys that could have a huge impact in this, win-loss, that are flying under the radar. Ryan, lead us off, man. Who's your X factor of the week?
I really, really want to say a Dives answer right now. It's like I'm just itching. It's great. I'm going to say it. It needs to be Kellen Moore.
I like it.
Kellen Moore absolutely has been below average, if not kind of terrible, over these last couple of games. And I think the simple fact of turn around handball off to Saquon has been your saving grace. That's not going to cut it completely against Washington. You're going to need to pass the ball a little bit more. And again, last game, it was a snowball. You're going to want to run the ball a lot more. That's fine. Whatever. I kind of take that as a wash. But it's clear skies. It's going to be about 40, mid-40s during game time. Perfect throwing the ball weather. So mix it up and get yourself an actual offensive game plan there, Kellen Moore, please.
Q out here trying to get us thrown off the air. You know damn well that man signing those executive orders is all over the internet, bro.
Rob knows all the words.
Hell yeah, I do. Not right now, though. I don't want to sing.
Who doesn't?
I'm tired.
Jalen, who's your X factor?
Oh man, my X factor in the game. I just had it at the top of my head and I forgot it just like that. Come back to me. Come back. It was right.
Come back to me. Rob, who's your X factor?
Well, in a game with Philadelphia facing Washington, of course the X factor has to be a guy named Dallas. And that's going to be Dallas Goedert for me. Okay? Because I think from the passing game, look, even in that Rams game, Jalen made a couple big plays to Dallas Goedert. Finding him open across the middle of the field. The one play that he gained like 30 or 40 yards kind of sticks out in my head after the snow fell. I think Dallas Goedert can be a big, when Jalen needs that completion, and if they're shading coverage to AJ, look for the man Dallas, okay? Look for the man Dallas. He can be a big, big play for this. Not to mention his old confidant, his old mentor on the other side of the field. Dallas may want to show out a little bit this week.
Yeah, he's been my X factor the last 2 weeks in this playoffs. You look at the Washington Commanders, a team that blitzes at the 6th highest rate in the NFL. And Dallas Goedert ranks 8th best among tight ends in yards per route run against the blitz. So
I want to see that tight end screen again, only this time without the ineligible man downfield.
Shout out to Mekhi. But Dallas Goedert has been really solid these last few weeks. Super underrated for this offense when the passing attack is not working right now. That's a really good one. We already talked about Q. How about special teams? Can I go special teams? Like
such a Dibes answer.
I know, right?
The reason why
unit. You just want a whole unit.
The reason why, and I rewatched
it's actually a great point. I know what you're going to say.
The reason why is I rewatched the games. Did you realize the Washington Commanders had starting field positions at the 40, the Eagles 43, the 37, the 39, and the 43?
That week 16, it's the only game of the year I watched at a bar. And I always went outside right before it seemed like the Eagles kicked it off. And I always came back in, and it was like the Commanders were at the 45 or the 50. I was like, what in the hell? Braden Mann was still kicking the ball off at that point.
Yeah, he was.
Jake Elliott needs to kick the ball off and just say, you know what? I'm kicking it through the goddamn end zone.
Out of the damn end zone.
He was able to do it in the snow all game last game. You could do it in 40-degree weather on Sunday.
Seriously.
Yeah, and I'm Jalen, I'm pretty sure you have some special team issues going on as well, but Jake Elliott looks completely lost right now.
But does he though? I mean, look, I get it. Like, listen.
Yes, he does.
He's missed 3 field goals and an extra point against the Redskins in 2 games this year.
Right, but he has never missed a field goal in the playoffs and hit 3 of them in terrible weather conditions.
So fun stat about Jake Elliott. Jake Elliott now holds the record for the worst extra point percentage, and also the greatest field goal percentage.
That's my point. History. Like, I don't know if we could say he looks lost. I think because of his field goal, all 3 of his field goals were dead center in the snow on Sunday. The extra points, he's in his own damn head. It's the only, and because he always misses it. It's missed to the left, missed to the left, missed to the left.
Right.
That's what get back to the middle of the field. He lines up with that.
I can kick extra points, and they're not that hard.
I don't know if you could, but that's okay.
Oh, I absolutely can. I mean, without anybody actually coming at me, but yeah.
All right.
I actually kicked the extra point in the Commanders Eagles game one time. It was crazy. That's crazy.
That's awesome.
So we're doing X Factors. Are we doing just Eagles X Factors or X Factors for the entire game?
Everyone.
All right. So I know why I forgot it because I had this whole wrestling promo. But my X Factor, to be honest, outside of it just being the hit heard around all of Philadelphia, is Frankie Louvu.
I love
it. Because Frankie Louvu, like I said, outside of just that hit, he had 2 of his better games of the season against the Eagles. I think his interception changed the entire fortunes. I think that was the biggest thing, even with Jalen's injury. I think if you guys drive down on that and go up 3 scores, I think that's an entirely different game in week 16. And to be 100% honest with you, I think he concussed Jalen in week 11 on that first sack and on the flea flicker as well. I know Jalen went to the tent and he was able to come back. But even if you look at him in those press conferences or that bit he did with Scott Van Pelt, he was talking a little crazy. He was like his marbles weren't all there. So Frankie Louvu seems to have some type of vendetta when he sees that Kelly Green, and I'm going to need him to have it 10 times fold on Sunday because honestly, that Week 16 game was the best game he had in a while, and it was honestly probably following up honestly his worst game that he had all season against the Saints. That was a different type of Frankie Louvu that we have been seeing. This was a guy that was a second-team All-Pro. He looked every bit unlike it against the Saints. So for him to have that bounce-back game against you guys, and he seems to be on the up since then, I think that if he can keep that momentum going in this game, I think we have a shot.
I was making a video this morning and I was researching Frankie Louvu, and one of the first things that popped up was number one offseason target for the Eagles. It was a short on Frankie Louvu to Philadelphia.
I remember that. I remember that. You were in love with him.
I do. He's one of those guys that you hate so much, but if he was on your team, it would be the exact opposite. Mm-hmm. Any other X factors, guys? I've got a couple more. Obviously, Mikey Samerstill is, for me, one of my favorite players on the Commanders. He was one of my favorite guys during the draft process. Ryan knows. And it's been awesome to see him be exactly what we saw at Michigan. He's been playing out of position, which is nuts. He's now playing on the outside, which I had him as a slot guy, nickel defender kind of dude. And he hasn't really missed a beat. He's given up some yardage. He's given up 6 touchdowns, but the dude is a straight playmaker, man. Straight playmaker. His passer rating allowed is top notch, 27.1 during the postseason. That's outrageous, man. Just major shout out to Mikey Samerstill, one of my favorite dudes. Dyami Brown, Jalen, this guy is a problem, and I don't know if we're talking about him enough because he's been lighting it up. He's got 187 receiving yards, a touchdown, and on 11 catches through 2 playoff games. He's been playing the slot. He's been playing the outside. He's got an 84.6 catch percentage rate, which is tops in the postseason among everyone. We've seen him kind of burn Darius Slay at times as well. This guy's a guy that's going to stretch the field, and we've seen the chemistry between him and Jaden Daniels just be off the charts these last 2 games. So a guy that could be an X factor is Brown just having big plays, and this is a defense for the Philadelphia Eagles that doesn't allow a lot of them. But the throws, the chemistry, like everything seems to be pinpoint. Any thoughts on Dyami Brown?
Yeah, in the community, in the Commanders community, we nicknamed him Playoff Dyami because it's completely different from what we've seen in his prior 4 years. I know you touched on that deep ball that he beat Slay with in the regular season, Week 16. That was 40 of the 380 yards Dyami Brown had all regular season, right? And that's been a trend over the course of his 4 years. But the last 2 weeks, I've never seen Dyami Brown act like this before. And I do think a little of it, he had a battery in his back due to the comments that Amon-Ra St. Brown had against him a couple of years ago. But, you know, Dyami's, he was a day 2 draft pick for a reason. He's a height, weight, speed guy. He was a downfield threat. I think his last year in North Carolina, he led the nation in yards per catch. So he's showing that downfield ability. My favorite thing about him is that he's winning more than just downfield. Like even the few times that he won in the years past early in his career, he won downfield and nothing else. His routes were nasty. He was rounding off his routes at the top. But now you're seeing he might be our best receiver in the screen game. He's blocking. And I honestly remember when we did the preview show, I said, I honestly think Dyami's play in training camp was the biggest reason that we traded Jahan Dotson to you guys, is that, you know, his play style fits a Cliff Kingsbury's offense. And Adam Peters looked up and I was like, we got this, you know, high draft value that we bought in 2021. Let's see what we can get for a guy like Jahan Dotson. But yeah, playoff Dyami is fully intact, and I hope that he can keep it going because, like I said, he's never had a 2-3 week span like this in his life, to be 100% honest.
Yep. All right, keep an eye on that. Any other X factors before we get in?
I'd say if you remember Week 16, Zacchaeus and Crowder both had pretty big games. So Cooper DeJean in that slot, has got to have his head on a swivel. I don't want to be getting beat by Zacchaeus and Jamison Crowder.
No. Yeah, Terry McLaurin had that one big touchdown. But outside of that, I feel like it's been mostly the role player wide receivers that have burned the Philadelphia Eagles during their matchups. All right, let's get into our prop bets. It just dawned on me that I can now replace that Quinyon Mitchell Toledo highlight with his first interception highlight. I'm very excited about that. All right. During previous shows, Jalen, we already did these, so we're going to run through these. I think I'm winning. All of us expect the Eagles to win. Who do you think wins on Sunday?
I got to go with my guys. I got to go with the Commanders.
All right. What's your score prediction?
31 to 28.
Whew. All right. And that would be over the 47.5.
Yeah.
Over under on Jaden Daniels rushing yards 49.5.
Over, because I think he's going to need more for us to win the game.
All right. Most of us have over on that one. Over under on sacks allowed for the Eagles 3.5.
That's a good number. I'm gonna go under. I think it might hit 3 on the dot. So yeah, let's go with that.
Okay. Over under on Commanders turnovers 2.5. That's a little high. I was getting some shit for that.
I'm gonna go under because I don't think Brian Robinson has another 2 fumble performance. That was the only
number for turnovers.
Yeah, that was the only one that he's had in his career. But the Eagles might be his kryptonite, but I'll go under.
Under.
You got Jalen Rocky Carter out there punching the ball out, baby.
Peanut punch. Over under on total rushing yards from Brian Robinson and Austin Eckler 79.5.
Those two combined, it doesn't even matter. I'll go under. Yeah, under.
Most of us took the under there. Over under on receiving yards from Terry McLaurin 69.5.
Over.
Okay.
He said that with authority.
Right. Right. Realizing that in 2 games he's had 70 yards.
Can I circle back on Brian Robinson and Austin Eckler just real quick on the Washington run game? They had a really good game against the Detroit Lions. The Eagles have held the Commanders running backs really well through 2 games. I feel what's your just general thoughts on the rushing game besides Jaden Daniels?
I might be the biggest Brian Robinson critic in the Commanders community because this is a trend that we've seen over the course of his career, to be 100% honest. And I don't know if it has to do with, the shooting that he sustained prior to his rookie year, but he has a trend of just like having a downward trajectory from like October towards the end of the season, whether it be missing games or lack of production. And honestly, like his 70 yards, even though that's a pedestrian number, that was like a breakout game for him because he was putting up like 19-yard, 30-yard performances. So I'm not the most fond of Brian Robinson. I think he's a perfect like goal line back RB2. But I do think that Austin Eckler is going to be essential to this offense. He's a chain mover. So if we're going to be, focusing on time of possession, we need him. I don't think he's going to kill you guys in the run game. But if we can remember in the first half of that Week 11 game, he got Zach Bond's number a couple of times in that first half.
Brian Robinson helped me win this. Okay, so
that was this year?
That was this year, baby.
Okay.
It was this year. Now, it was a big league with a lot of people, but Brian Robinson was one of my guys.
It had to be a couple 1-yard touchdowns in there.
It was a big touchdown league, and that was the one thing that he was good at.
Absolutely.
The one concern I have about their running backs is not even running the football. It's Austin Eckler as a receiver. That's it for me. And we've seen the Eagles get burned on a number of occasions. If guys can get into open space, we've seen some susceptibility with missed tackles in big moments. All right, circling back. Over under Saquon Barkley rushing yards 159.5.
It's so crazy that this is like a prop number. It's just a testament to the type of season that he has had. But I'm going to go under just due to the fact that I don't think that Jalen Hurts' mobility is going to provide as big of a threat to be playing that 11-on-11 run game. But I think he'll be close to 160 without a doubt.
All right. Thank you, New York Giants.
Some away from the record, right?
140.
Yeah, I think it's 148.
He's 148 from the single season, including playoffs record.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
I'm getting some comments about my musical choices here. That's hilarious.
By one person. One person. And it's the same damn song. Get out of here.
All right. Over under on Dallas Goedert receiving yards 54.5. I think 2 games. No, he missed the one game. But the previous game he had like 60 something.
Mm-hmm. I'm gonna go over with you guys as well because I think we're gonna be having to sell out against the run, put a lot of 8 in the box, which leaves our safeties and man coverage, and I think he can eke out 55 yards.
And then this has been a recent addition to our weekly prop bets. Over under on Jake Elliott missed kicks. That could be kickoffs. It could be field goals.
Yeah, right. Way to be a man of the people, baby.
By the way, I was the only one that picked the over last week. Everyone else picked the under.
I'll continue to pick the under, baby.
Exactly. We're willing it to happen.
Look, Jake has earned me saying under with his career. Not lately, but with his career.
Since we're including extra points, I'm gonna go over because I do agree. I do agree that he's in his head about the extra points because Rob, you hit it on the head perfectly. He's hitting all of them like the same. Like he's missing all of them the same way. And I think that's just the yips, to be 100% honest. Maybe he needs to kick his fit. Maybe you guys need to have like 2 flags before your extra point so you can kick a 40-yard extra point.
He needs to take a Xanax before every kick.
All right. That wraps up. This is the longest party on Broad we've had in quite some time. I'll throw it to you, Jalen. Final thoughts, Eagles versus Commanders, plugs. Take your time, man. Whatever you want to plug.
I think it's perfect that this was a long stream. It's only right that it's been the NFC Championship. I enjoyed every second of it, though. I can't wait till Sunday. And like we talked about before the recording, I hope that this is a rivalry that lasts for at least like a decade. You guys have a super strong roster. We have a young up-and-coming quarterback, and hopefully in the years to come we can build that roster up around. But I'm super excited for Sunday. I appreciate you guys for having me on. And if you guys like what I was spewing on the stream, you guys can follow me at Bleeding BNG on YouTube or all podcast platforms. We're available audio only, and all of our episodes are on YouTube as well.
All right. Thanks for thanks for coming on, man. Really appreciate it. It's now like you're almost like a certified like co-host at this point.
Yeah, it's like a tradition at this point.
Pretty much. It's been a few years. Bleeding BNG. Go check it out. YouTube, wherever you get your podcasts. Ryan, I'll throw it to you, man. Final thoughts, plugs. Time is yours.
Yeah, this game's going to be fun. And Jalen, you're absolutely right. Obviously it's been a while since a Washington team has been, able to kind of rival the Eagles when the Eagles have been good. And hell, it's a lot better. Screw the Cowboys, screw the Giants. So I'd much rather have a nice rivalry with y'all than any of those 2 bum franchises. So
I agree.
There you go.
I will say, and I mean, this comes from a kid.
No, Rob, take over, please.
Well, no, I'm just going to, just on that part, I went to school down in Maryland, knew a lot of Commanders fans. They were Redskins fans at the time. They never annoyed me as bad as the Cowboys and the Giants fans and even the Ravens fans. Like, just never did.
Yeah, I also went to school down there in Southern Maryland. So anyway, yeah, you can catch me Party on Broad. Dives finally beat me in a mock draft off. Congratulations, buddy.
That's because no one's paying attention.
Well, listen, we do draft coverage all year, so pay attention.
That's ridiculous.
Yeah. So, you can also check me out, of course, on the Eagles Pinpool Network. I'm on 3 shows on there as well. So, I know, right? Yeah, Rob, you go do your own thing. But anyway, please make sure you follow. Please make sure you follow everybody on here. Even Jalen, kind of know us Eagles fans. I'd still, listen, let's just call it keeping an eye on the enemy. That's all.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, let's do it up. He puts out good stuff, and yeah, let's go. And again, I say this every week. If you're down there tailgating, come stop by M5, grab a beer. Let's go into the game and have a great time. Yeah, Rob. Hey, Rob, you can come too, pal.
Thanks for the ticket again, man. Appreciate it.
I ain't giving away no free damn tickets.
Yeah. Is it my turn or are we reading these?
Go. Dives, you can send it to Rob now.
Go ahead, Rob.
Can't wait to interrupt him.
So I had picked the Eagles 24-21. It was a very difficult pick for me because I am a little concerned about this game. Won't lie to you. Also, you may have seen that my total points was 59. That's because Dives accidentally forgot about 5 weeks of my picks, which would have put me probably well over 100 points. So I won. That doesn't matter. I just want to make that very clear. But now, look, I am excited, man. And it's funny. I said to someone the other day, I feel like we've taken for granted the Eagles' success in the 2000s because there was a time where making it to the conference title game was like, oh my God, I'm like I kind of miss feeling like Commanders fans feel right now. Like I miss that jubilation. Like I'm happy. I'm very excited that the Eagles are there. But I feel like a lot of us were like, well, damn, if they didn't get there, we would have been pissed. Like, you know what I mean? Like it's changed. And we've taken for granted just how good they've been. This is their second title game in 3 years. Thank you to the Commanders. It's in the link. It's at home. We didn't have to travel. So it's all exciting. This will be this. Now I didn't go to the one in 2022, but I was at every other one prior. But it's exciting.
I was there, Rob.
I think it's great for football. I think having the Eagles and the Commanders is great for the NFC East. And look, I hope the Eagles win by 25 points. Okay? They're not going to, but I hope they do because I don't know if my heart can take what I had to witness last Sunday. So with that said, you catch me Philly_Madness. Go Birds. Let's go. I want to see what NOLA's all about, baby. I don't want any more of these Minnesota-Jacksonville Super Bowls. I want to be in NOLA.
I have some crazy stories about NOLA, man. I was actually there for an Eagles Philly sports trip the last time they were down there. That was wild, man. That was wild. By the way, for the record, Jalen, Rob, you said 27-24. I have 24-21.
Yeah, whatever. They win by 3.
Okay. But anyway, just put out some NFL draft content. Top 10 positional rankings are done for the 2025 NFL draft. Also put out my top 5 prospects to watch on offense and on defense for the upcoming Reese's Senior Bowl. Tons of content on that, as always. Marshawn saying Rob's getting all the Mardi Gras beads. Woo woo! Hurts will embrace his inner
from my couch because I'm not going.
One last time, thank you again, Jalen, for joining, man. Go check out Bleeding BNG, especially this week. It's going to be a lot of fun, man. Is it Sunday yet? He is Ryan. He is Rob. My man, Jalen. I am Dives. Thank you, everyone, for watching. Stay awesome.